Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Ana Maria Morales, and I like to welcome today to the first virtual bench learning that we are hosting from the European H2020 project, DataBench. Today, we have the pleasure of having two of the participants of DataBench presenting the findings on the economic and market analysis used to measure the value and economic relevance of main European industry sectors using and developing big data technologies. Before that, allow me to say a few words about the project and these virtual bench learnings we are organizing. The goal of DataBench is to design a benchmarking process helping European organizations developing big data technologies to constantly improve their performance by measuring their technology development against parameters of high business relevance. The project addresses the gap in the current benchmarking community's activities by providing certifiable benchmarks and evaluation schemes of big data performance in relation to its business impact. DataBench will provide the big data community important results, including the DataBench framework, which include a complete set of metrics for big data assessment, multiple analysis to determine the level of impact of big data on these industries, and the main outcome, which is the DataBench toolbox, a one-stop shop for big data benchmarking, offering multiple benefits for different kinds of users and businesses. These will include a knowledge browser, industry reports, surveys, case studies, and the DataBench handbook, which provide all the guidelines on how to use the project results. This virtual bench learning is part of a series where we will present some of the most relevant results achieved by the project. And the goal of these activities is to reach out key industries and benchmarking communities in order to build synergies and create a self-sustainable interaction model, which allow us to continue after the end of the project on December 2020. In this opportunity, we will also want to invite different communities, research projects, or even businesses joining us today, which may be interested in testing our main outcome, the DataBench toolbox, in order to collect feedback and opinions. So in case you're interested, please contact us. On the next virtual bench learning on the 28th of May, we will present the results on use cases and a short demo of the toolbox. So stay in touch on our website and social media accounts for more information and registration. Before starting with today's session, some practical issues. The session will last approximately 45 minutes, and after that we will move on to the Q&A. So if you have any question, please write them down on the chat, which is located at the control panel on the right. And at the end of the presentation, our speakers will answer your questions. Right now, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions to check which is the main interest of the audience. As a feedback to our speakers. So the first question of the poll is about your profile. So I will give you a few seconds. Please let us know if you're more interested in technical aspects or if you're more interested on the business application of big data and benchmarking. Okay, I'm closing the poll now. Okay, so 59% of the audience is more interested on technical aspects and 41% on the business side. And the second and last question is related to if you have been involved in any benchmarking of big data and which purpose. I'm giving you a few seconds. I'm closing the poll now. So 52% haven't done anything yet related to benchmark, 13 only for technical purposes, 22 for business purposes, and 13 for both technical and business. Thanks for answering. Just a reminder, at the end of the session, There's a brief survey on 2 questions to get your feedback and recommendations about this, how you like the webinar today. And we will send you in the coming days the information presented today with some other interesting material. Okay, so without further delay, let me introduce to our speakers. Gabriela Cataneo is Associate Vice President of the IDC for EU European Government Consulting Unit, which she founded in 2005 to provide research and consulting services to governments and policymakers on ICT market trends and scenarios. She has more than 25 years experience in socioeconomic research, impact assessment, and benchmarking of ICT policies on behalf of the European Commission. She also represents IDC in the Big Data Value Association. Also today with us is Erika Spinoni. She's a research analyst in the software group at IDC Europe. She's based in London and supports European big data and analytics practice across research and consulting projects. Erika's coverage areas are machine learning, emerging data platforms, and business intelligence. She also supports the European government consulting team on H2020 projects such as DataBench. This is our information on social media and website if you want to know more about DataBench. And now I will give the control to Gabriela so we can start the presentation.
Anna, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, perfect. So good morning and thank you all for attending this webinar. Today we wish to share with you the results of the project DataBench research on big data business impacts by European industries. Whether you are a business manager, a technology developer or a researcher, you know that competition is a fact of life. And today, with the economic crisis caused by the coronavirus, more than ever, organizations must be fast to adapt and leverage technology innovation to survive and compete. And to have a better chance to win the business race, you need to be able to measure your performance. And this is what benchmarking is for. What we will do today is to share with you the main business KPIs used by European enterprises to measure their achievements because and thanks to big data investments. DataBench has measured benchmarks by industry and company size class, so you will be able to compare your experience with those of your peers in the same industry. Our analysis of use cases will help you to relate your experience to data. We will only have time to present an overview of this data, but you can find all the results in our reports on our website. I'll give you the links. And if more important, you can also do a self-assessment survey and receive a personalized report with our benchmarks, and I'll give you the link. Very soon, the benchmarking services will be available in an interactive way through the DataBench toolbox, which is the main outcome of the project. So business performance is not easy to measure. So why should you trust our data? Well, first of all, because we developed these benchmarks in the context of an indicators framework developed by the project, taking into account all the factors driving technology implementation in the business area. As you can see, we focused on industry, company, application area, business process integration, business goals, and so on. With this methodology was based on the scientific and business expertise from IDC and Polytechnic of Milano, as well as the other project partners. Moreover, our benchmarks are valuable because the source data comes from extensive data collection. We did 2 survey waves in 2018 and 2019 from a big sample of organizations actually implementing big data, but also European project pilots running big data experimentations. And we validated our results with 18 case studies. So what is good to find is that our results on, for example, profitability and revenue growth are comparable with actual in-depth analysis of real experiences. And all these results are available to you. Finally, thanks to this approach, our benchmarks are of industrial significance because they apply to the actual and emerging needs of specific industries and specific company size segments, because we investigated the kind of elements that European companies need to know about. They are of European economic significance because our sample is representative of the overall European industry and is focused on the company segments in which big data can have the highest impact. And finally, it is also useful for linking technical and business performance, and this we do through the use cases in which we match the solutions with the business impacts. What are our KPIs? Before we get into the data, I'm sure you are eager to see them, but let me just tell you a few words about what we measured exactly. We selected 7 KPIs, which are representative of the main aspects needed to understand business performance. They are not exhaustive, they're not perfect, but they are sufficient to give a very good idea of what's coming next and what are the achievements of this project. There are 3, let's say, more simple, if you want, KPIs, the first 3, which we call quantitative, about revenues, profit increase, and cost reduction. This is measured, the revenues increase is measured as the increase in company revenues thanks to the adoption of BDA, and this was a question of the survey. And the same for profit, and for cost reduction, of course, we asked about reduction of the cost. And the benchmark is the percentage increase or reduction, and we selected the median value of the answers of our enterprises. Why the median and not the average? Because the average can be influenced by the dispersion of values across the sample. You will see that in many cases we have some peaks or lows of these values, while the median reflects well the overall performance by industry or by company size. The other 4 KPIs have to do with time efficiency, which is the efficient use of time in business processes and is a proxy for productivity improvements. The product service quality, so how product service features corresponding to users' implied or stated needs are impacting their satisfaction. Customer satisfaction, which means whether end users, in the view of the respondents of our survey, were responding with a positive or negative feeling about the product or service. And finally, the business model innovation. Business model is basically how the relationship between the company's product and economic value creation is implemented. And to give a very simple example, a change in the business model means, for example, moving from traditional sales to service subscription models, or, for example, what is happening in the car industry, where more and more companies are selling car services for the whole year rather than the actual machine. These benchmarks are more difficult to measure because they're not so easy to measure as a simple value, quantitative value. So we asked people to score them on a scale of 1 to 5, in which 1 was less than 5% improvement and 5 is 50% or plus improvement. And you will see how the results are distributed. I hope this is sufficiently clear. So let's go to the actual quantitative benchmarks by industry. You see the results from the major industries analyzed by the DataBench project. Well, first of all, in terms of profit increase and revenues increase, you see we have a group of leader sectors who have achieved on a median value 6% improvements in profit and 5% improvements in revenues, thanks to big data investments. Well, some of this is not a surprise because we know that finance and business IT services are leaders in the use of big data, as well as telecom and media and utilities. What is interesting is that the values for cost reduction are lower. And we can tell you that in most of our analysis, we found that companies are more focused on profit and revenue increase and improvement of services rather than on cost reduction, even if this is a big element. In terms of the different sectors, What is interesting to know? Well, in terms of industries with more problems, agriculture and healthcare, even if they show a healthy improvement of profit 5% and revenues 4%, are actually less advanced than the others in terms of achieving benefits, especially for the qualitative KPIs. And this is corresponds to their difficulty in terms for the healthcare. We know that there is a complex process of change management which is needed to implement the most sophisticated big data related solutions. And for agriculture instead, it is the potential benefits are huge, but the sector is also fragmented, and we had difficulty in finding a sufficient number of enterprises already having implemented big data. Perhaps manufacturing is a very interesting case, because manufacturing is the biggest sector, is a very large and diversified sectors. What is interesting in manufacturing is that in the use cases we find a wide range of benefits, particularly higher than the median, particularly, for example, in the case of new product development and supply chain optimization, as we will see. And here is the view for the qualitative benchmarks by industry. We see that the most companies, the majority of companies have achieved benchmarks around 10–24% improvement, score 3. And this is quite relevant, because plus 10%, plus 24% is quite a high range. And we see that the differences by sector there are, but they are not huge in many ways, because for example, if we go through them, we see that in terms of agriculture, there are the potential improvements, the benchmark improvements for time efficiency and product service quality are really high. And this is understandable, because in the case of agriculture, when the starting point is quite low in terms of digital technologies, and there are use cases, for example, the monitoring of yields of fields through satellite data, which are really very, very valuable in terms of improvement of efficiency and improvement of revenues as well, of quality and productivity. In the case of finance, you see customer satisfaction as achieving the best results, but also product service quality and the new products and services, which is clear, because it's also understandable, because what we find for big data, the financial services industry has always been a leader in technical innovation, but customer satisfaction is the competitive differentiator. Now that the industry has new level of competition from fintech and innovation, and this is very, very important. In the healthcare industry, you see that there is improvement in the business model innovation. Even this is a public-private industry, and there is a lot of attention on cost and revenues as well, but the business model innovation changes have to do with the way you can use data to, for example, for telemedicine or other type of services, which can really change the process. We have seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, we are seeing an extremely new wave of ways in which digital technologies are being used to manage the pandemics, from the point of view, for example, of not only forecasting contagion and measuring results, but also for contact tracing and checking and trying to manage the control of the infection through apps. There is a big discussion about how the new apps used in the COVID arena, and this is really probably making for an acceleration in the healthcare sector on the use of data innovation and also AI related technologies. Just one word. We did this analysis in 2018 and it was focused mainly on big data, but what we see today and what is ongoing is a strong connection between big data and artificial intelligence application and technologies. Big data is the source of the enabling factor for many artificial intelligence technologies and services. And what we find is that the enterprises who have invested in big data analytics and efficiency are more competitive in terms of implementing artificial intelligence, so they are competing and improving their positioning. What is interesting in this analysis is also there are two sectors, manufacturing and telecom, where you see business model innovation as the service where the area where there is less improvement. And this is maybe due to the fact that the change of the revenue model is not the most important factor in these cases, but also because the focus is on the product service quality and customer satisfaction in these sectors as well. But as we said, through the self-assessment survey, you can investigate the benchmarks for your specific industry and your specific case. Use cases. What is a use case? A use case is the implementation, the application of the big data technology, in this case, to a specific business process or business case. What we have looked at, we have investigated for each industry and each company size class. We have investigated a number of use cases, which according to IDC research are the most frequent and most used. And here you see the top 3 cases in terms of results of quantitative benchmarks, so profit increase and so on. They are different by sector, as you can see, and reflect well the different specificities of the different sectors. For example, you can see that in the case of finance, the top use cases have to do with fraud, prevention and detection. This is an area where finance is investing heavily. And of course, customer profiling, targeting, optimization of offers, where they find a peak of 6% improvement of profits. And the same in the financial service, you see that customer scoring helps to achieve 6% profits as well as quite good results in terms of revenues. You can see that in the case of agriculture, for example, the results are not as high. And even if predictive maintenance, a bit surprising, is the top use case in terms of support, but this has to do with the fact that they're starting to use more equipment in that case, and yield optimization is also a use case in our list. In terms of the business IT services, you can see that customer profiling shows the highest results in terms of profit and revenues, but also risk exposure assessment, which is extremely important, and we can see a median of 7% improvement of profits in this case. So through the use cases, you can see a variety of results and impacts, and you can get ideas if you have not yet implemented these use cases, which ones could be more interesting for you. Just to give you an example of the use cases and the case studies that we analyzed in depth, which have confirmed our average benchmarks, this is a case of a retail company which is selling grocery. And what this company did, piloted not only big data, but also AI in one shop, and achieved a 5% increase of margins, which is equivalent roughly to plus 5 million euros per year. In the retail industry, as well as the margins are razor thin, as you know, and margins are going to be even more important when we get back to recovery after the lockdown due to coronavirus. So these kind of technologies are going to be even more important. In this specific case, they use machine learning to optimize the assortment and to implement automated fulfillment at an individual shop level. It was actually how to position cookies in a shelf, just to translate this into practical solution, and this was it included a complex AI system with sales prediction and helping to optimize and fulfill the positioning of the cookies in a certain shop. And this was run on Spark in Amazon Cloud. The problem, is that each run costs 100 euros and it's very expensive to scale up. So one thing we found is that the companies find very good results, but then have difficulty in scaling up these achievements through the whole company organization unless they can find solutions in terms of especially cloud computing and data processing. In terms of the top 3 use cases, I think we already went through this. So I will give the floor to Erika for the analysis of the benchmarks by company size.
Thanks, Gabriella, for the detailed industry overview. But now let's dive deeper but quickly in the results from a different metric, the company size. The company size analysis is structured as previously presented by Gabriella for the industry section. So first, we will have the quantitative benchmark overview as this slide, then the qualitative one, and last but not least, the quantitative benchmark analysis by use cases. So from this slide, it's possible to see that there is a clear and striking progression in the value of benchmarks from small medium enterprises from 10 to 250 employees up to very large organization, so 1,000 plus employees. And these latter show the highest impact thanks to the economies of scale and ability to leverage larger data sets. The combination of leading industries in big data technologies uptake and large company size is confirmed as the main explanatory factor for IKPI benchmarks values. But let's see a bit more in detail by company size. The quantitative KPI benchmarks for small and medium-sized organizations up to 500 employees have not large differences in how big data technologies are impacting profits, revenues, and costs. Despite microorganizations show higher profit increase, less is for revenue increase and cost reduction. And indeed, the benchmark values are close to the overall sample results. On the other hand, small and mid-sized organizations prioritize cost reduction over innovation according to statistical analysis of their priorities in terms of KPI relevance. Moving to large enterprises, thanks, Gabriella. Moving to large enterprises from 500 to 999 employees, we can see that they are strong adopters of big data technologies and represent a large share of the survey respondents. Their KPI benchmarks, however, are not really different from the previous size segment, while they have slightly better revenue increase impacts. Instead, very large enterprises, so the ones with 1,000 plus employees, claim the highest KPI benchmark, particularly in the case of profit increase. As we can see on the last row of the slide, they have a plus 6%. These enterprises are among the first to adopt big data technologies and have been able since the beginning to reap the main benefits, also partly thanks to the availability of large data sets in-house. And then moving forward to the benchmark by company size on the qualitative side, we see interesting variation of these KPIs by industry. They reflect the way different industries exploit big data technologies to strengthen their competitiveness and respond to user needs. However, only large and very large organizations are able to reach and reap high level of improvements, and also in some of those qualitative KPIs. For example, we can see products and service quality for large organization, and very large organization. And in addition to this, very large organization also are able to see high improvement in customer satisfaction. This is really highlighting the relevance of metrics to evaluate organization external performance and perception, which is extremely important for them. While what happened with small and mid-sized organizations, they see smaller improvements, and especially when considering business model innovation, as this is maybe not the top priorities for them, or it's simply difficult to be achieved, especially due to the traditional management system and the structure that is traditional for small organization. And then moving forward in the analysis of use cases quantitative benchmark by company size, we can see that there is a strong homogenization and largely wide consensus in which are the most relevant and widely adopted use cases. Indeed, 4 are the main use cases across European organizations, regardless of the size of the company analyzed. And we can see new product development, risk exposure assessments, price optimization, and regulatory intelligence. And then with tipping a bit the analysis, the distribution of these 4 use cases, it is possible to identify differences of objective across the 5 company size presented. For example, new product development has as main benchmark profit increase, and the expected increase is around 5% across the 5 company sizes. Price optimization instead has as main benchmark both revenue increase and cost reduction. Moving to risk exposure assessment, it is benchmarked with different KPIs according instead to the company size considered. And it can vary from strong profit increase to a more modest revenue increase and cost reduction. From a small medium-sized enterprise perspective, regulatory intelligence is mainly benchmarked through revenues increase, while bigger, larger organization, for example, the one with 1,000 plus employees, they benchmark regulatory intelligence with large profit increase. Then diving deeper in the responses from very large organizations, we can see and we can understand that they are moving the focus, the objective from more traditional use cases, and they're starting to evaluate also different ones, such as we can see, customer profiling, targeting, and optimization of offers, as they are even more and more customer and oriented and customer centric. But moving on, what we're really interested to. Gabriella, can you change slide, please?
I'm trying to.
Okay.
Come on.
But
It's
but what we want to really understand is not only the industry and the company size point of view, but really also understanding who are the best European performers and also what they are doing and which are the outcomes in terms of benchmarking activities. So we have simply decided to recombine our dataset and attentively look into those organizations that already have in place big data projects and technologies, and which they also have achieved high level of benefit at an all enterprise level. And from this new sample split, we're able to pick 5% or 36 organizations out of the total sample Gabriella was mentioning before of 730 organizations surveyed. But who are those organizations in terms of demographic? Well, we define them as star performers, and they tend to be large or very large organization. And as you can see from the chart in the middle, they are 72% of the total sample. and they're coming from multiple industries, but mainly from retail and wholesale and business IT sector services, because those sectors are really data rich, and data-driven innovation is essential for success. In the next slide, you can see that the high level of benefits are also reflected in the quantitative KPI benchmarks value, higher than the average sample and also than the other section. Star performers achieve median 8% profit and revenue increase thanks to big data technologies, compared to a 4 to 5% median benchmark value for the total sample, the red line, and others, the purple bar. Concerning cost reduction, star performers achieve only slightly better KPIs than the overall sample. However, that is clear that it's not their priority, since they are more focused on innovation and growth, in which they perform definitely better than any other industry or company side segment, confirming this that they are the true leaders of the market. Instead, looking on the right-hand side chart at the qualitative benchmarks, it is possible to understand that star performer has significant larger improvements in 3 out of 5 qualitative KPIs presented before. And here we can see that they have stronger impacts and achievements in product service quality and customer satisfaction that are externally oriented KPIs. And as we have said before, customer-centric overview is really important. And then there is also time efficiency. That is the only one mentioned KPI which is really internally oriented. So the European landscape is really engaging and really interesting. And these are really interesting results because we're able to present effective KPIs and effective benchmark for organization to rely on. And thank you for your attention. And now back to you, to Gabriella, for a quick overview on how to access all the data presented and more. And then we can open up for the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you, Erika. I just want to say that the star performance, we measure them because on one hand, the benchmarks tell you what is the median performance, but with the star performance, you can compare yourself with the very best. So you know where you could arrive if you want. Today, you can already benchmark your performance through the self-assessment survey on the DataBench website. You see here a screenshot. Basically, if you compile this survey, which asks you what are your performance results, you will receive then in real time a summary report positioning your results with the average of your industry and your company size class. And we trust this could be interesting for all of you. You can also find the benchmarks report on the DataBench website. It's a deliverable, but it provides all the details about the results by industry and for all the segmentation we examined, as well as the methodology and the strong and weak points in case you're interested. Finally, all these services, the self-assessment tool and other and more benchmarking services and information, especially on the technical side as well, will be available soon on the DataBench toolbox, which is going to be launched by the project before the end of the year for sure. So I will say thank you, and these are our main contacts, and I will give back the floor to Anna in order to answer questions for all of whoever interested to ask questions. Anna?
Thank you, Gabriela. I will take back control. Okay, so we have one question, Gabriela, about the example you made on retail. Can you please clarify what did you mean by positioning of the cookies?
Sorry. Yes, I didn't explain myself very well. The concrete example is a shelf. You know that in supermarkets you have different brands of cookies positioned in shelves. And supermarkets routinely experiment with moving brands in certain position to see which ones are sold first, because depends the sales depend on the visibility, on the reaction of people. So if you put a brand in the bottom shelf, it will sell less. You know, that's very basic common sense. But there are also more sophisticated ways to analyze the consumers' perception and reactions to the different brands. So what they did was to use artificial intelligence and big data, to collect detailed data about sales and correlation with the position on the shelf, and then they used AI to make predictions about how to improve and optimize sales depending on the positioning and the visibility of the cookies on the shelves. And this resulted on increased sales and therefore potential profit increases. The problem is that to do this, you have to carry out the same exercise in more or less real time for each sales point of sale. And this means a lot of time and cost in data processing on the cloud. And this was the problem because the scalability costs are very high. I hope this is clear enough.
Thanks, Gabriela. We have another question about the barriers of implementation of big data. Can you please tell us a little bit more about it?
Oh, thank you. This is an excellent question because we spoke about the benefits. We never spoke about the barriers and the problems. What we are seeing today, as I say, as we see the evolution towards using big data also to enable AI applications and services, what we see is the main barrier is actually access to data and data interoperability, because companies need to use different sources of data, need to combine them. So there is a problem both on combining heterogeneous data sources as well as checking their quality, and also in many cases there is a need for data sharing within the supply chain, the value chain. And this is also something which requires a lot of work in terms of collaboration with enterprises, as well as standardization and interoperability issues. So at the moment, I will say that apart from all the barriers that we already know about change management, skills, cost, but in this moment, I think the main barrier is access to data and the data interoperability.
Thank you, Gabriela. We don't have any more questions, so I think we will close the virtual bench learning now. Please remember that if you need more information about the project, you can contact us through our website or in social media. We will send an email with all the material we saw today and other really interesting infographics about this topic. Thank you so much, Gabriela, Erika, and thank you to everyone joining us today.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you, Gabriella.
So thank you so much and stay safe. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.